And there's Anthony right there. We're going to get a chance to talk to him right now after Michigan's big win. The Wolverines, Anthony Broome, joins us on the program. How are you, Anthony? Good to see you, buddy.
I'm great. Another week in the books. Can't believe we're 4 weeks in already. It's flying by. We wait all year for it, and then we're a third of the way through the regular season. It's crazy.
You want to bring us down just like that, Anthony? No. Let's revel in the fact that was a fun game. It's a win. Michigan's still undefeated. Uneven play from J.J. McCarthy means we get a lot to talk about here. So let's start there. Get the win over Maryland. It's a big day on the ground for Corum. We'll talk about him in a moment, but let's first talk about the young quarterback, because you see the spectacular play and then you see the, oh my God, why are you still holding the football play?
Yeah, I think a lot of Michigan's offensive quote unquote struggles from yesterday's game were, I think that it's a quarterback that's still learning that, this really was his first real start. I mean, he played against a couple really bad teams in Hawaii and UConn. The dial switch got cranked up a little bit this week when you play a team that at least, if you want to say that Maryland's a middle tier team in the Big Ten, middle to lower tier, that's fine. But it's the first team you see that has comparable athletes. They're well coached, all those types of things. So for me, I think that some of the struggles boiled down to, this is a guy that is learning that you can't just play hero ball. And I think with the play callers too, just kind of still learning what they can put on this young man's shoulders. So a little loose with the football. He didn't record a turnover, but they left a term that Michigan keeps using is we've left meat on the bone on offense. I mean, they were impressive at times. McCarthy had a couple of huge clutch throws late in the game, but they did leave some points and some yards out there. So it's a process for him. I think there are some Michigan fans who think he was, like some of those young quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence, et cetera, they are ready out of the box. This is still a developing guy who's learning to kind of play within himself and just run the offense, as opposed to it all has to boil down to me. So I can't say I was overly concerned by what I saw. I'll say this though, when you look at the stat line, 18 for 26, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, that's like, for Michigan the last couple of years, that's been like a solid to good Cade McNamara game. And we're talking about J.J. McCarthy like it was a C+, performance. So there is so much upward trajectory there still. I see a guy who the game is slowing down for him. I think he's making smart decisions for the most part. It's just a matter of, snap to snap, just making the right read, making the right play, and just trusting your guys around you.
Always, Anthony, easier to talk about a player who's developing, learning, getting better as you play after a win. Obviously, you get a win, you survive some of the unevenness, you move forward, you learn from your mistakes. Coaches love games like that because they have everything they want all in one. They get the victory, but they're able to sit the young man down and say, now, look, we can't have this, or we need to do this. But another big reason for the win was Blake Corum. How big is it to Michigan to have him rise up and have the kind of game that he did? I thought the game changed on the 4th down run, the first one that he broke outside, obviously muddled in the middle there. He gets to the outside and scores, and I thought that wrestled kind of momentum away from Maryland at that point.
Yeah, to address your first point before Corum, I think that this was you never want to say a less than ideal performance is what the doctor ordered, but this is the first game tape where I feel like these Michigan coaches can actually sit down and figure out what needs to be coached, what needs to be improved moving forward. So from that perspective, I totally agree with you there. And you'd rather do it in a win than struggle and lose or things like that. So. As far as Blake Corum goes, I mean, we've been pretty transparent about the fact that, this is not, they don't have a Hassan Haskins on this team, or we didn't think they did. A guy that you could give him the ball 25, 30 times a game, week in and week out. He's going to get the job done for you, pick up the tough yards, all those types of things. Last year, Blake Corum was kind of more of the finesse guy. Not always a guy that could run between the tackles, but he bulked up a little bit this offseason, put on about 11 or 12 pounds. And when you watch him play on the field, I won't say he looks a step slower, but the burst just isn't quite the same that we saw. But, he did what he did physically to himself this offseason to be able to shoulder that load a little bit more. I know for Michigan, they want it to be like a 1A and 1B dynamic with him and Donovan Edwards, who didn't play on Saturday. But, Blake Corum was kind of their guy. And, they gave CJ Stokes, the freshman, a chance to have a carry early on in the game. he fumbles the football away, and it's, they just couldn't have that in a tight game like that. So they needed Blake Corum to have a big day. I thought he looked outstanding. The fourth down play absolutely changed the game. He had the touchdown run late in the game that sort of iced things away for Michigan. He has pushed a pile a little bit, and he does. I don't want to see. You never want to see a guy like that because he is a little smaller than most running backs. Just take a beating and take 30 carries every week. And I don't think when they're healthy they'll need to do that. But for one day they needed him to kind of just be the guy, and he showed out in. I think we've all. Michigan circles have known that he's capable of big things and making big plays, but that was pretty eye-opening. And it was actually kind of alarming to me how casually dominant it was. Usually when a guy runs for 243 yards, you notice that, like, it jumps off the page. But there was a point in the game where I think it was sometime in the first half where you looked down and he had like 13 carries for 127 yards. And we're like, whoa, like how did he get there? Like it was impressive. And also the best day that Michigan's offensive line has had this year so far, from snap one to the end of the game. I was really impressed with how those guys played as well.
Yeah, you get a great performance as well from backup tight end, and has a huge day. I believe it was 7 catches. I forgot the total. I watched that game yesterday. It was a fun game to watch, but that's always fun to see when a guy who's put in the time, the work, the investment, and been there a while and have that kind of success.
Absolutely. I mean, Eric All didn't play. We don't know how long he might be sidelined, but they think that Luke Schoonmaker is someone that I just talked about 1A and 1B with the running backs, but they think that they had that dynamic with him and Eric All, and the fact that he was able to just kind of step in and fill the void and really have the best tight end performance we've seen from Michigan so far this year was impressive. 7 catches, 72 yards. I think when you have a young quarterback, to have a safety valve over the middle of the field where, first, second read's not there, or really there was a few throws where Schoonmaker was the guy, was the read, and that ball comes out quick and it's on the money, and that guy helps you move the chains. So really impressed by what I saw to him. And like I said, the tight end usage in the Jim Harbaugh offense has sort of waned a bit as they've modernized their attack here a little bit. I mean, it's always a bread and butter position for them. You're seeing them use those guys more as H-backs and lead blockers now. But, when your number is called, you got to be ready. And I think that whether Eric All is healthy or not, Luke Schoonmaker is a guy that is more than capable. And that's something that he showed on Saturday.
Anthony, thanks, man. I really appreciate you joining us here. The Wolverines, Anthony Broome, we appreciate you, and we'll talk to you again down the line as the season progresses. I won't hurry it. Let's just live in the moment. Let's live in these – we love the game so much. We don't need to talk about how little is left, right? Good to see you, man. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Of course, 1 week at a time. Thank you, guys.